Peter Parker.
A real man does on accident what a coward fails to do on purpose. You always want your opponents to have you miscalculate. That's why Ali never lost. He understood that art. And if you go into negotiation, if you go into business with that mind state, you'll never lose. So your emotions are a good thing. No regular man could just talk to Cleopatra and get his way. There were high standards for her. That's royalty, and that's real feminism. See, if you can have this kind of wisdom in your job, in your business, in your career, in your home, nothing can stop you. Hey, how's it going? This is Augustus, and today I want to discuss with you guys something that I think will be life-changing, very brief, but life-changing if you could really grasp this. And it's a concern that many aren't actually aware that is a issue. Some may know of this, but they may not practice it because of our surroundings, because of what the media shows us, things of that sort. And what this topic is, the difference between worldly business and divine business. The difference between worldly business and divine business. Now, first of all, I want to make this clear because I know many of you may be listening to this for the first time, but business takes on many forms. Business can take place in a thing just because negotiation and reward is present. See, and once you think of that, there really isn't that much to business. But because of how business was instituted, it was created, it was founded on becoming extremely complicated so that not everyone will succeed at it. See, that's the whole purpose, the whole format, the whole setup behind business is to have so many complicated laws, regulations, rules, litigations, consequences, so many of these things to it, to the point where it is extremely complicated to become successful in business. I want to break all of that today. Now, once again, for those that are listening to me for the first time, I bring up very spiritual matters, but I correlate them and kind of dumb them down to earthly terms, so that it's so easy. I know this is cliche, but it'll be so easy that a caveman could do it. There's no better way that I could say it. So let's get into it. Business is a experiment. All right. It lives within monopoly, which is a more grand experiment. Now, when I say experiment, I don't mean, a couple of scientists getting together and putting something, and then marketing it, putting it before the world. No, I mean experiment the way that democracy was an experiment, in ancient Athens. That kind of experiment, the way that the way that aristocracy and the workforce was a experiment in the way that it was implemented in the days of Julius Caesar, and in the way that emperorship and running an empire was an experiment in the days of Caesar Augustus. See, in the way that a religious background that wasn't based on religion was an experiment for Jesus Christ. See, and I say that reverently, but when you look at that sense of experiment, you'll see exactly what I mean. Something being done for the first time, something that doesn't have a historical tree or historical roots to really stand on. That's what I mean when I say experiment here. So, monopoly was an experiment. It is an experiment. And business is an experiment. Before the market crash, before really before this country, America, for those that are in different countries, before America was, since America was founded, business has been an experiment. Before that, there was no business. Everything was done. You might want to write this down. Everything was done out of commerce and trade. That was the only form of business in ancient times, and it wasn't really referred to as business. See? Now, why is that important today? Why is the ancient form of business important today? Because it could set you apart from anyone else that goes into any form of business with a business mind. Let me put this out there. Business is lower than commerce, is lower than trade, is lower than all of the forms of ancient business. See, now I could see if this was an experiment that is proven to be better than all of the ancient forms. But I'm sad to say, business is actually the worst. Business cannot implement loyalty. It can't implement love. It can't implement these things. That's why the most successful business people have horrible situations in their home. They have a horrible social life. They have a horrible family or life with the family, because business doesn't implement these things. And if you do have a successful business person that has a healthy family and they have healthy social skills, then that's proof that they know how to take themselves out of the business world for whatever they're doing. See, they know how to take themselves out of that business mentality, of that business mind. Here's another big deal with the difference between worldly business and divine business. All right. Now, actually, before I get into this, I do want to make it clear. Divine business is the highest form of all right? And we'll get more into the divine business. But the difference between worldly, or we'll say business, and ancient commerce or trade. There was no call for negotiation. There was no call for negotiation. There was no need for negotiation. Not in ancient business, not in ancient trade or commerce. See, today, whenever a deal is done, whenever a deal is made, before the deal can even be made, you have to negotiate the deal. Now, what's negotiation? It is mental, hand-to-hand combat. It is mental, hand-to-hand combat. This is why there's rules to negotiation, like never be the one to make the first offer. That sounds like warfare. That sounds like that sounds like martial arts. Never be the one to make the first offer. Never give the best offer in the beginning. Start off with a horrible offer. If any of you listeners are aware of how martial arts is done at its finest, you will know that you never give 100% in the beginning of a fight. You always want to test the waters first. You always want you always want your opponent to be to have you miscalculated. That's why Ali, he never lost, because he understood the art of puzzling their opponent. He understood that art. See, and if you go into negotiation, if you go into business with that mind state, you'll never lose. So negotiation is a part of business, and a lot of people, they learn to like those things. But there's a higher level of commerce or trade or business, you could say, that trumps all the rules of business. And that's trade. See, today, business is done. Business is done based off of the needs. I'm sorry. It's negotiation. Negotiation. But in ancient times, everything was based off of need. So before you even met with another merchant, it will be clear in your mind. It will be clear in theirs. They need something. And you, as a merchant, you would know that they know that you need something. So the objective when you guys met wasn't to get over on somebody, or to get a better deal than the next man, or to get the best possible deal that you could than the next man. No, The whole objective was to supply each other's needs. And business was done it was done so quickly. It was done so swiftly at such ease. Because this was the mentality. The whole mindset wasn't on taking. It was on giving. And there was no question if you were going to receive or not. If you were known for, if anyone took anything in that day, if you got into commerce or into trade with someone and you didn't stand up to your end of the deal, automatically by every kingdom that deals with your people, they will brand you as a pirate. Automatically, you're either a pirate or you're a raider. And no one, you will be out of business. Just like that. See, if you take from someone today, other businesses will be lucky to hear about it. It'll be so covered up between all these contracts and all these laws and all this paperwork. People will have to research your background in order to see that you have pirated your way into success. See, so when people go into a art or a craft knowing that they could get away with so much, how many people are you really going to be able to help? And if you help people, how many people do you have to hurt in order to help them? Then you'll hear people come up with silly excuses like, well, you have to hurt people in order to help people. I beg to differ. I beg to differ. If a child can't help people without hurting people, without being sent to timeout, then a grown man can't help people without hurting people, without being sent to jail. See? But the sad thing about it is, and this is how you know the laws of the land, the laws of today need help. These lawmakers, the laws that are set before us need a lot of work. And you know this because whenever people jip people in business, they don't get persecuted. There's no persecution for it. See? So, all of that being said, since we got that out of the way, now we can get on to ancient business. I hope you guys are ready. So just like ancient, well, how can I put this? Ancient business, all right. It was very basic, very to the point. It was based on needs, right? But there were things that governed the laws and the physics of ancient business. You had things like politics, all right, but They weren't implemented in business the way that it is today. All right, I just want to put that out there. But you have politics, you have government, you have agriculture, you have economics, and you have industry. Religion didn't play too much of a part in trade in ancient times. Not so much. Definitely more than it does today, right? You'll see a Christian working with a Satanist if the money was right today. But back in ancient times, it was implemented a little more. But those are the main branches, or the main roots to ancient business. Now, there's a form of business beyond ancient business, and scientists are just now starting to grasp this. But there's a divine form of commerce. There's a divine form of business, a divine form of trade. Now, here's a spoiler, all right? There's a form of business even beyond divine business. I like to call it heavenly business. Heavenly business. Now, this is so far beyond our grasp, it almost doesn't matter. But let me briefly explain to you why it matters and why it matters so much. Because if you can master, if anyone can master these laws and use them on the earth, there's no competition for you. There is no competition for you. I hope you're listening. See, in ancient business, like I said, you have agriculture, all right? That was a very big deal. Agriculture was a very big deal. Economics, that was mainly the dealings of, agriculture, industry, things of that nature. But I'll separate it just for the sake of our discussion. But agriculture, economics, alrighty, industry, very, very big deal. Labor was a factor, but in ancient times, this is sad. Your workforce was more of a commodity than it was a separate entity. See, because people sold people, many people engaged in slavery. So we're definitely going to rule that one out. But that was a heavy factor in ancient times too. Now, politics, military, things of that nature, very big deal. These things affected the economy. They affected business. Why? Because these were the aspects that dictated what your nation needed or not. For example, gold was the king of all materials on the earth for a very long time. The king of all metals, I'll say, the most valuable of all metals. But if you were dealing in commerce or trade in a time where it was a lot of war, then the price of gold automatically went down. The value of gold automatically went down. Why? Because you need to fight. Gold isn't going to help you fight a war. So bronze takes the crown as king in times of war. In times of peace, gold is all the way up. People like gold mainly for the fact that it was symbolic of the wealth of your country. See? Because if your country produced gold, the livestock has to be good. Your agriculture has to be good. They have to be. If your people are producing gold. And that's also that was also a good gave people a good idea of what their workforce was like too. See, because if you had enough people or wealth to hire people and to feed those people that are just mining for gold, which you're not going to use for war, you don't need it to build things. That's a lot of extra time. And see, I'm not even mentioning what it takes to weld these things and to make things out of gold. See, so when someone came from a different land and they seen a king that was decked out in gold, they said, okay, this guy, he's doing something. This kingdom has a lot of potential. There were times where a certain kingdom would be so lavish that even their military fought with gold in their armor. See. So these were the main factors. Politics played a part in it, because if you had a nation that had silly politicians, then they will war with everyone for no reason. They will war all the time. They will send out merchants to the wrong places. They would get shipwrecked whenever they would engage in trade with other kingdoms and nations. Things like this happen all the time because they had silly politicians, silly government. See? So that definitely played a part. Military, as we said, plays a big part in ancient business. Now, if you were to go into business today where politics plays a bigger role than military, where politics plays a bigger role than agriculture itself, you're in trouble if you don't learn those ways. You're in trouble. You won't even be able to walk the block because you would have no knowledge of what's going on. Yeah, politics. Now, some may refute that politics is the king of business today. It's the king factor of business. But let me just add this fact. When you see something on the news You can believe that is true. You can trust that it's true. But the reality is, you didn't get that news from the people that are involved in it. For example, if there was a catastrophe in the farming industry, those aren't farmers that are deciding whether people get to see this on the news or not. If there was a catastrophe in the military and this war is just costing everyone money, these aren't soldiers that are deciding whether you see what makes the news or not. We could get into religion. If there was a catastrophe in religion where cities are losing their mind because there's no social assistance, there's no one helping the people. Today there's a new religion that we don't call a religion, but it's science. Not Scientology, science. Because that's all psychologists are, they're scientists. So if there's a catastrophe in religion or science and people in these towns aren't getting help, they're just losing their minds. It's not the psychologists, it's not the scientists that decide whether you see what you see on the TV or not. It's the politicians. The politicians, the lawmakers, all people in government. Those are the ones that decide whether you get to see what you see on TV or not, and whether it gets to be true or false. See, this is why politics is the king of commerce, of business today.